Yo, what's up? It's Yo Remy and I'm back. So it's been a while since my last videos and I talk a lot about studio time, which is the Airbnb for music studios, or that's what we've been called. But today it is the largest online marketplace for music studios in the world, and we have music studios in over 35 countries. So you can see a lot of my other videos in the past where I talk about where I actually canceled dinner, built a marketplace without code in one evening and launched it and basically turned it into what it is today. But some of the more interesting questions that I get are not actually how you build it, but how you generate revenue in the early days and how I did it with little to no cost and didn't take any investment. So that's typically what's called bootstrapping a startup. So Studio Time is a bootstrap startup. So that's what this video is going to be about, and I'm just going to talk about how I actually did that, some kind of creative ways that then you can maybe just learn from my past experience with this kind of insights that I'm sharing, and then take it to your own startup and bootstrap it. So that way you don't have to be reliant on saying, hey, I have to raise outside capital in the early days to start, or you just have the fear of not knowing how to actually start and can start. All right, so let's just get into it. So as I just kind of briefly mentioned, the first thing with Studio Time is that it required little to no upfront cash investment, or that's outside or on my part to actually start it. So you might be wondering, okay, so how is that the case? So the first thing is, and that's I was very resourceful on how I actually went about building it. So I used no-code tools to build it, so that way I wasn't really reliant on a team of developers for the initial build, designers, or anything, right? So my first video, I actually discussed how I created the logo with Squarespace logo generator for free, not even on their paid plan. I used ShareTribe, which is a marketplace creator, and built it without code. And I did use some kind of small customizations on that, of course, because it's not like you can sign up for ShareTribe and then have a marketplace. But basically, I reduced the technical debt that you usually incur when you start a startup in the early days. So I had little to no upfront costs. It's basically my time, which if I was going to start a startup, in your case, you're going to, then you need to invest your time in really learning about it. It's my time learning the tools best and just being resourceful. So that's kind of how I started, with little to no cost upfront. Then from a marketing side too, that's something that I kept in mind, is I didn't use Facebook ads. I didn't pay to get press as far as for being featured or anything. I used kind of these like small kind of like hacks that I consider on basically just understanding where are people spending their time that have potentially owned a music studio or are looking to book a music studio. And I just simply figured out how can I identify them online and offline, and then invest the time for me to be able to reach them and then let them know about Studio Time, whether that's through a conversation on email, DM, on Instagram or whatnot, and then convert them over to a user. So it's basically my time that I was investing on marketing. So there was literally no upfront marketing costs, and even to this day we actually haven't done any paid marketing. So I kind of stick true to that. A lot of people ask about Facebook ads or how you can pay to get exposure on some platforms or whatnot, and just the way that I chose to start and then run Studio Time is still bootstrap. So we don't have any kind of paid marketing on that end. So from the tech side, from the marketing side, even, this was like a solo kind of startup in the very early days. We didn't have a team cost, so there weren't any other kind of outside costs really involved on initially starting. So that's the first thing on how I actually bootstrapped it, was just making sure that there was little to no upfront cost. Now, the other thing to keep in mind is, okay, great. So you build the marketplace and you launch it and say that you are able to generate some initial traction. Well, then how do you continually bootstrap it? Well, it's fairly simple and easier said than done, of course, but you have to keep your recurring costs down. So your monthly costs for all the tools, so for instance, ShareTribe, we used WordPress in the early days, Zapier, and then some other kind of tools that we had to use is kind of like almost to like hack them together to build it as no code. Basically what we had to do is keep the cost on that, of course, down as much as possible, so that way our revenue far superseded that. And what is typically called like a monthly burn rate, which is all the cost to run a startup, ours was super low. So it was literally probably, I'd say, like $200 or $300 a month the first couple of months. So we were actually able to generate a lot more revenue, actually a little bit over $10,000 in revenue within the first weeks. So of course at that time, then it gave us a little bit of runway. So we just extended as a business our ability to continually invest more time and money to continually grow the marketplace which just gave us more time to focus on it, right? So we didn't put ourselves in a situation saying, hey, we can't generate enough revenue to cover our cost or any other kind of expenses that we had. So that's the second, which is just to understand that we need to keep the monthly cost down as much as possible. Now, as I mentioned, the runway, that was actually the goal early on for Studio Time, was understanding that marketplaces typically take a lot of time to actually mature and grow. So that's growing the supply side, that's growing your demand, and that's just growing the general kind of awareness and liquidity of the marketplace. So we knew that, or I knew that in the early days, and then kind of the team from there as we grew, we definitely knew that. So we wanted to continually extend our runway as much as possible with the understanding that this wasn't like a super quick kind of launch, and then, we were going to grow very fast and then go raise venture capital. This is a niche market, a small market cap, so we knew we weren't really like venture backable, so to speak. So our goal was just continually extend our runway out. So that's kind of like the third thing that allowed us to bootstrap it. So the first was low to no upfront kind of cost. And then the second is a low monthly recurring expenses, or a very low burn. And the third is, one of our goals was to kind of build up revenue and stack revenue in all the ways that we could, and able to then extend our runway out, which would buy us more time, of course, to then further validate and further grow the business. So now something else to kind of keep in mind that we did, and just knowing kind of early on as a marketplace, was that marketplaces are typically capital intensive up front, but they also require a lot of support in the early days. So something that we did with Studio Time was we actually invested time early on with all the supply to help onboard them, help optimize their listings, and really just spend the time kind of hand holding in the early days, because we knew that when they would get booking requests, for instance, or they would have bookings, if we took the time to invest it in the very early days, we'd have a great relationship, but they would be more familiar with how Studio Time works themselves through that kind of like onboarding process. So it'd be less support in the long run. So if you just think that, hey, we're going to launch a marketplace and it's going to, scale and run itself, that's really not the case. You're going to run into a lot of potential support issues when someone gets a booking request and they don't know maybe, at the time that it expires, or they don't know that when they accept it, they need to send, certain information back to the user. So we just invested a lot of time early on to kind of help educate our supply and the demand for the early bookings, help optimize the listings and the supply, and then that, just knowing that would have a compounding effect to have users that were very in tune with our platform and knew how to use it, which equates to a better user experience and a better marketplace experience for people that use Studio Time. So those are a few different points. Something else that really did help us kind of bootstrap too was I think our mission and our focus with the market kind of changing. So Studio Time's been around for a few years. The market for music studios, so everything from home studios to top-line studios and the music industry, the markets have changed every year. So there's different trends in home studios and top-line studios and in the music industry. And basically what we did and decided early on was that we wanted to be the absolute best and easiest way for people to discover studios around them, from home studios to top-line studios, and then request and book and pay through our platform. So we didn't get distracted with all the different partnership requests and all the different engineers that were saying, hey, we want profiles and be able to be hired as an engineer. I actually did another video in the past about this, and I'll link down in the description. But we kind of chased that and ventured down that route a little bit in the early days. And we just decided that, this is our mission to be the best. And we just stuck to that and stayed laser focused, even with the different changes in the market. So it allowed us to basically continually build our revenue, have a great user experience, and be the best at what we were doing. And even though it is a small kind of niche marketplace and it is a small market, so of course not everyone in the world has a music studio or needs to book one, but we wanted to be the absolute best and build a brand as being known as the absolute best. You might be wondering, okay, so how does that actually all equate to then generating revenue? So with that, then basically we have the social proof and validation and ROI from the industry and from people that might be looking to book. So we've built a lot of trust with that. So when someone has the intent, at whatever time that is, whether that's tomorrow or a year from now, we'll be here and we'll be top of mind, and hopefully they'll use us to either list their studio or to book it. So in short, that's a few things and a few ways of how we've actually, things that we've done to be able to bootstrap from the early days to get to where we're at now. So we are a highly profitable startup. We still continue to have very low monthly burn, so we don't have a lot of costs involved with running the company. And we also generate revenue through subscriptions and through our booking commissions that we charge studios. I will honestly say that subscriptions are not typical for marketplaces. So I know that's been a big topic that a lot of people have asked about. So I'll actually do another video discussing subscriptions for marketplaces and the pros and cons in that in another video. But that has definitely enabled us to be able to generate some initial revenue that then we've been able to reinvest kind of down the road. So we haven't, in the early days, been dependent upon bookings to generate commissions and revenue. So that's definitely something else that plays a big factor that I'll do another video on. But hopefully these different things that I've shared with you and some kind of insights on Studio Time help you understand how we've been able to take Studio Time not only from an idea to a live product and marketplace, but from a business side, being able to bootstrap it, have no outside investors, being able to basically extend our runway out to where we are a highly profitable revenue generating startup, and hopefully how you can take this and do it yourself. So hopefully you like this video. If you have any questions, definitely comment below, hit subscribe so I can keep making these videos, and I'll make some more videos on whatever you guys comment and want to know on next. See ya.